welcome to this meeting of the Town and Community Committee on 18th of October. Going to start with item 1, which is apologies for absence. Councillor Arlett substituting for Councillor John. Any others? Okay. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Anyone? No. Okay. Item 3, public participation. To receive questions and comments from members of the public. So you, Sean, are going to speak on item 5, aren't you?
Yeah, I was just starting to come along just to do a quick update.
So you don't have any
questions.
Okay, so we don't have any questions from the public tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to raise, and I'll raise this because I can't raise it anywhere else. I'd just like to express my thanks to the Henley Literary Festival. They did 120 events for all ages, and it was fantastic this year. I thought it was really good. I attended one actually on the Monday morning, which was the one by Sarah Furness, who's a helicopter pilot, ex-helicopter pilot, and she's a Henley local resident. And she didn't have a space in March, but they made space for her, and it went down brilliantly well. Not just hers, but lots of other events. Now we support the Literary Festival. We give them use of the barn at a very amicable rate, as it were. And I'd just like to express my thanks to their team. I know they're a business, but I think they did a great job, and I think it's really good that they involved local people in it, and also invited councillors. So very many thanks.
I went to see Brian Binston, it was absolutely brilliant.
See that in Bragg?
Did you? Yeah. There was actually others. Couldn't get tickets from Marina Hyde though. Wanted to.
Oh,
Sold out so quick.
yeah.
Anyway, moving swiftly along, item 4, minutes. To approve the minutes of the Town Community Committee meeting held on the 6th of September. Does anybody have anything to add, comment, or change? Those in favour? Carried. To receive and note the minutes of the parking working group meeting held on the 6th of September 2022. So, yeah, all those in favour? Thank you. Item 5, street cleaning. Sean, would you like to?
I mean, I don't want to pick up too much time. I mean, Nick asked me to come along. The last time we actually sat down and reviewed it was when Laurie was here. So in essence, the street cleaning, so we are responsible for largely the York Stone, so it's different to Big Fun. It's going reasonably well. It's become more challenging. So if I go through it very quickly, 2020 we did a clean of the whole thing over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, which nearly broke us. Then we went into COVID, and we decided that we'd hit the streets, and we basically cleaned up every bit of chewing gum on the York Stone during 2021. So we changed the process in 2021. And in 2022, we've been trying to do a regular and often clean, a bit like sort of Ford Road Bridge, just keep going around. Hasn't worked that well, but we're getting back up to speed. And with Laurie, we decided to sort of break it into chunks again and take it in big chunks. So you would have seen a couple of weeks ago, we sort of hit the marketplace. It's just more challenging. Obviously, I appreciate the town needs the income from markets, from street vendoring, but that just causes more challenge. And I think the overall picture, I think the council maybe needs to look at is ultimately what is the long-term goal of street cleaning. We love cleaning the streets, that's our job. And when you finish that York Stone, it looks beautiful for about 3 days. And the challenge we have is stone is very porous. The more we clean it, kind of the more it gets dirty. So we're in a sort of a never-ending sort of catch-22 situation. So we've talked about sealing it, we've talked about grouting, but these all come at significant cost. So it's really a sort of a judgment call from the council about how much cleaning we want on those streets. Like I say, they look beautiful when they've been cleaned for a few days. But just to give you an idea of the impact, if you look around the town hall where there's very little impact, one clean a year and it kind of looks really good. Bar maybe the time when we didn't do such a good job of funds. Then you go into Marketplace and down by Starbucks and it looks horrendous. You know, and being a resident of Headley, I hate looking into town now because I'm sort of saying, why are you throwing litter there? Why are you sticking chewing gum there? But it's a never-ending task. So I'm not here to complain. I'm just saying that we'll keep going, as well as the town cleanup. We did the station park cleanup, which seems to have gone down pretty well. We've cleaned up a few ad hoc villages where we've been notified, and we have a crew in town. We managed to attend 1 or 2 couple of spillages, but the more you go around town, there's spillages every weekend somewhere. So it's good, we enjoy it, it's a challenge. It's really sitting down now with Nikki, now Laurie's not around, to sort of look at how we do it. You know, we're looking at what we call we've broken the town into 3 areas: high impact, medium impact, low impact. High impact, we want to clean more regularly; medium impact, less so, and obviously the low impact, we clean once a year. So we kind of focus on the target areas. We kind of know where they are, but you know, we cleaned Marketplace the other week, and the stains that were left at the end were horrendous. But we just can't get them out. We use basically a hot pressure wash, so it's high pressure with heat. You know, we don't want to be using lots of chemicals in these situations if we can avoid it. So these things are challenging, but you can see the vehicles that drive up onto the Marketplace every day, motorcycles parked there. That's just aggravating the whole situation when it comes to cleaning. So I'm not complaining. I understand the challenges of running a busy town, but those challenges have an impact on cleaning. So we will keep going as long as you want us to. I think you need to think about the bigger picture about what you want to do.
Okay, could we have Madam Mayor, then Councillor Eggleton, and then Councillor Arlott, please? Thank you.
Thank you. What would you say the top 3 offending is? Is it drinks spillage? Is it vehicles on Marketplace? Or is it something else? Not necessarily in that any particular order.
It's difficult to say. There is a lot of drink, particularly outside the coffee shops, but a lot of that can get
Coffee spillage.
can get rinsed away. But if you look under the seating on outside Starbucks, it's grease. Where that's coming from, you know, it's ingrained in. We've got hot pressure on there. We've used a bit of product in it. It's a hardly shifted it. So it's difficult. There are different cycles, if you like, but I wouldn't say drink is it. I think it's a combination of everything. But the vehicles certainly don't help. The vehicles certainly don't help. And I can understand if even if you're delivering on market day, you don't have to necessarily drive up onto the square. It's just convenient to drive on.
Yeah, this is something that I've noticed a lot, is that in sort of market trading, instead of actually just parking in a line down Marketplace to load and unload, they're actually driving, and some retailers and restaurant owners are driving their vehicles onto Marketplace, which is a pavement.
I was there last night. 3 nights ago, BMW obviously doing something with the new shop, just drove up parts. And if that's acceptable, that's acceptable, but it does, I would say that's almost one of the biggest topics.
Thank you.
Councillor Eggleton.
Just a couple of things. Is because it's a soft stone and it's a porous stone, if you jet wash it, which is not the best thing to do, even concrete, not the best thing to do with any type of stone, especially when it's a porous stone, because you take the soft stone out of it and then you leave it with a sponge, which is what you're saying.
Yeah.
As soon as you clean it, you're taking all that. So when they was first jet washed, which was many years ago, which doesn't do the pointing any good either, it blows all the pointing, because unless you've got a substantial pointing or you keep repairing the pointing, jet washing is you shouldn't really do that. A scrub with brushes and things like that, or a low jet wash, so you're not actually penetrating the stone, because it loses its pigment as well as makes it porous, and all that, the vehicles and all the footfall it makes it dirty again. So it is an endless task. There is solutions, because I remember when we was talking to Miles a long time ago, that there was this company that you can clean and then you put this protection down so it seals the stone.
That's right.
I don't know whether that was 3 or 4 years ago, so they're probably more advanced now with that type of chemical. So in the long term, if it was pointed and cleaned and then sealed, then that would limit those. And
that's kind of that's definitely a bigger picture that should be looked at. But just so we don't do pointing, and we do seal, maybe not on this scale, but the sort of figures we're talking about is going over £100,000 to seal those sort of and do the ground. It's significant. The process to effectively seal will be to clean, bring up all the dirt, to dry, to seal, to dry. You know, that process is, and then you've got to seal. I mean, it's a huge task. I'm not saying it's not surmountable. It's again, it's a chicken and egg, isn't it? It's whether you save on cleaning for a number of years and then put all that in. The the scrubbing of the streets, I understand that fully, but when you scrub a street, it will remove surface dirt, it will get rid of moss and things like that, but it won't actually give you a decent thing, which is why most people will pressure wash it, but the downside is it will open up the pores.
The more you pressure you end up with some of the stone, which is all just eroding away now, because you've taken all the pockets out of it, so you end up with dips in the stone, which you have got in marketplace. The other thing is bags of rubbish that put on the streets, and that's where your oil's coming from, and all the other stuff where you get bags of rubbish where they've had all their greasy stuff and their things, put it in there, don't double bag it, it's left on the streets overnight. So you end up with those stains which are and coffee stains which get into that stain because it soaks it in. And then you also got vehicles and oil spillage and things like that, and tyres, and I mean there's 3 vans parked on the marketplace tonight. So you get that. I think the thing is what you need to address is not having the rubbish on the streets for long periods of time. So the rubbish is put out and it's gone. I know we've talked about this quite a few times, and not having any vehicles on the marketplace. There's no reason for having any vehicles on the marketplace whatsoever. And I've mentioned it, and I think Ken's mentioned it. Quite a few other councillors have mentioned it about reinforcing those bollards that are on that marketplace, so no one can actually drive on that marketplace, because at some point someone's going to get run over.
Councillor Arlett, then Hamilton, then Crook.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever met Sean, not what I'm aware of, but thank you for replying to my 8 or 9 questions. I think you just covered those in your preamble, so thanks for that. But you're absolutely right about around the town hall. You know, when you clean that kind of stayed clean for ages and ages. But I think after you've been like the marketplace, you say after 3 or 4 days it's dirty. I don't totally agree with that. I think once you clean it, it looks fairly clean for a while. It's just, as you say, it's the 1 or 2 really bad blot spots, you know, and I'm sure you've seen them.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think you're doing fine. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Okay, so when I say 2 or 3 days, I drive through the first day, see it beautiful, and you can see it degrade quicker than you like it to.
Yes,
In 2 or 3 days
you never get tourists complaining, because tourists are always looking up. They're looking at the buildings. It's the residents that are the ones that trust me, it's a fact of life. But thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Sean, for coming along. Intrigued that you had 9 questions, but I'm sure you've answered them all. We've had this problem in the marketplace for the last 10 years, and we keep discussing it, and what we've heard from you tonight has been really insightful, so thank you. I think we as a council need to do better, and it's wrong, for example, that we've got 3 vans currently parked, but Planet Organic have got 3 vans currently parked on the marketplace. And what we should be doing is helping Sean by writing to all the not the landlords, but the tenants of those buildings, and saying, the marketplace is not a free-for-all for marked parking, even at night, even when you're doing work. They'll be quite capable of taking their tools from one of the parking spaces here down to Planet Organic as an example. Secondly, we do need to put signs up. This is something that Councillor Egerton has said about motorcycles parking on that weekend. There's about a line of 20 there about 2 weekends ago on a Sunday, and we need to stop that happening. And the third thing, which again Dave has raised with myself in terms of, I think it was the parking report number 1, which basically said take the yellow line away outside from Facey down to Gabriel Mansion between the ramps, because if you allow parking there, you allow impromptu parking, as it were, on the left hand side, and stop parking on the right hand side as you come up. So if we start doing that, and if we address some of these bigger things in terms of signage and lineage, that will hopefully help Sean to do his job, which is the cleaning, which you carry on doing as you're doing currently. I haven't got a problem with. I don't think we should go down the ceiling route. I don't think that would help us. But if we can get our house in order in terms of writing to the tenants, sorting out the lineage and sorting out the signage, I think will be at least a further what we'll probably be discussing in 2 years' time anyway.
That's the question.
Yeah, I was out there on Tuesday last week when they were there. They did a fantastic job. Like when I came back afterwards, and it looked beautiful. But the thing is with motorcycles, and I have approached them, and what it is they don't, the motorcyclists, the motorcyclists, they don't have enough motorbike parking. Okay, so they have like an app thing, and they tell everyone if it's okay to park on the marketplace. I've asked them not to do it because of the oil spillages, but it's because there's not enough motorcycle parking. And we need to encourage them to park in the car park. They could actually park in a car parking space. Actually, because when I had my bike, I found that out that you can park in a car parking space rather than a motorbike parking space if it's full up. But a lot of them, because their bikes are really expensive, they don't want to leave them unattended, because what is, people go up with their kids and they put their kids on the motorbikes. But really, if they have an expensive toy, then don't take it out. You know, if I'm honest.
We're drifting off.
No, I know, it's a relevant thing, Glenn, because they will park, that's why they park.
I've seen them do it. I know
That's
that
why
they
they
do
park
park.
there, and they shouldn't do it, and they know they shouldn't, but they've got a group, they won't park if there's a market or something on, but they just shouldn't do it. We're asking them, if they want to come to the town, park in the car parking spaces, 2 or 3 bikes in one car park space, and that'd be fine.
Okay,
Just don't do it on the marketplace.
all right, thank you. Jeremy?
Thank you. I have noticed down the side of Marketplace, and I think at the top as well, there are bollards, there are cotton bollards there, and they have been welded shut, obviously a long time ago. So evidently, one time there was the intention that vehicles shouldn't be allowed onto the Marketplace, and something has happened, and it'd be interesting to know what the reason was there, and are we opening up a problem that was that had been created before? If not, then I would be in agreement that we could certainly look at reinstating those bollards. It certainly wouldn't deal with motorcycles. I think for that we'd probably have to look at parking enforcement, and I would probably advise against the sign because down the sign actually has much sway unless it's backed up with enforcement. And they know they're not supposed to park there anyway. I would say there may be some legitimate reasons why some vehicles may need to get onto the Marketplace, and we probably need to investigate that. I don't know the situation exactly with the market traders, and if some market traders actually, I know, for example, there is, I think the fish vendor actually vends on the back of his vehicle, for example. So there may be certain circumstances where vehicles would need to be permitted there with our permission. But I think certainly that would be something we could look into. Although I would say that there may be a good reason why we haven't done it up until this point. I was going to ask one question, if that was possible, of Sean. The idea of seeing it, we have had some mixed advice regarding seeing it. I think it was Warm Memorials Trust, somebody who lived locally who's in operations there, basically said that they wouldn't even consider sealing York stone on their property, although I think we're talking about a very different location. Is it the sort of so the question is it the sort of thing that could be experimented on say a small area, or would it stick out like a sore thumb and just do it in the street?
It's a great set. I mean, you clean mini large areas, the best thing to do is to do a trial patch. And certainly, you know, before we suggest anything, I would always take a small patch and trial it. There's nothing that, what could go wrong other than a square need to go wrong that you reference, you just sort out it went wrong. So if you wanted to try it, it's just looking for a hard area with serious footfall and trying it. But there's no point really trying it unless we think if we know that doing that area is going to cost X and multiplying that by Y is going to end up with a number that's not palatable. But if you want to trial something, I've been in the cleaning world for a long time, and I've looked at all sorts of other solutions that we've used in certainly not external situations, but cleaning stone. And I just can't find it. The ceiling at the moment is the only one that seems feasible. And it does come with different opinion about whether ceiling is a good thing or not. And I'm not talking about putting a sheen on it. I'm talking about just filling filling the porous nature of the stone to see it to stop dirt going into it. But it's a process, it's a long process. So it would not be a silly thing to try. And we can come up with some ideas to say, let's try this and let's try that. Sometimes you have to think out of the box a little bit.
Just before you say anything,
Go on.
Dave, does anyone around this table remember why you might have welded shut the bollards?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Please go ahead.
All the bollards, but this is what I was told, when I asked probably about 2-3 years ago. The reason they were welded shut is because they were trip hazards, because they were all broken. So they taken them out, they fixed them, so they were not gonna get kicked up if any vehicles went on them. Because it was cheaper to do that than replace them at the time, I'm assuming.
Do you know when that was, Dave?
It's probably been like that for probably quite before I was a councillor, I think. Then I've been a councillor for 8 years. Well, coming up this.
Yeah.
So they've probably been
When
welded
Peter was
shut for a
councillor.
long time.
Right.
But that was the reason that I was told that they were welded shut for safety reasons, because they couldn't be replaced.
They were broken.
And that was a temporary measure just to weld them shut at that time. And that's how they've stayed since. The other thing is with, and this has come from the park enforcement, and it can be enforced, but they can only enforce it if there's a sign stating no parking on the marketplace. That's come from a parking officer. They can only enforce it as long as there's a sign on there saying no parking in the marketplace. Also, when you've got on all of that area, they've got double yellow lines but flicks on the pavement. So when you get yellow flicks coming up over to the curb line, that means from the curb line, from that roadside right up to that building is no parking. So you can enforce it through that without the sign, but the sign also stops. I don't know what you're shaking your head for, because that's law.
I think
That's what the law is.
Councillor Russell's going to speak up.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know why he was shaking his head for. But basically, that's what a parking enforcement officer said, that if you've got a signage up there, it makes his job easier because he can give tickets. Because a lot of people, when you go to give a ticket, they say, well, there's nothing says you can't park here, which is in theory is right. But the thing is, double yellow lines with flicks on the pavements, they're not there at the moment. So technically, enforce it because they're not there until the yellow lines are put back in on the pavements. Then that's when it becomes enforceable from that right up to the boundary line.
Councillor Weissman.
As I understand it, double yellow lines are enforceable to the building, whatever the status of the flicks are there to prevent or to make unlawful people stopping there to load and unload briefly. So that's what they prevent. Double yellow lines apply all the way to a building, whether or not they have those flicks. That's how I understand the law. I may be wrong, but that's how I'd explain to him first. I've got a few more comments, I'm afraid. So far as the bollards were concerned, when the current marketplace configuration was created in 2003, the wrong bollards were put in. They were too slight, and therefore cars that went into them damaged them and bent them, and that was the problem. And the county council wouldn't find the money to replace them with the correct bollards. They should be heavy duty bollards, but they weren't. The other point about the single yellow line at Marketplace, again, when going back to 2003, when the current configuration was set up, the double yellow lines were there to allow for two-way traffic to take place, so the emergency service would go the wrong way from the fire station down to the crossroads, and so that's why they're there. They're there for safety reasons. Whether or not that's still regarded as a necessary requirement, I don't know. We'll see the fire engine go the wrong way down that side of Marketplace.
I have. Sorry.
Yeah, right, okay. And so that's why it's no parking. And lastly, on Marketplace itself, it's a footway, therefore it's a highway, and therefore highway rules, the law of the highways apply. And driving on the footway is unlawful, and therefore we can enforce it. I don't know whether that's the duty of the police nowadays,
No.
or the enforcement officers.
Driving on the footway is with the police. The problem is,
Right.
whilst The bizarre thing is that whilst it might be unlawful to drive on the footway, it's not unlawful to park on the footway. Even though you
The
obviously
law
have
is-
to drive onto it to park.
Yeah,
So-
in theory, you have to actually watch someone park on the pavements and by moving onto that stationary position in order to charge them with an offence or to.
Chair, I think we're going off, cleaning the pavements at the moment.
I think we've all said enough here, but I'd just like to thank Sean for coming along, really appreciate it.
That's right.
And-
Pleasure. Turn up anytime. I'll go through
Thank
more
you.
detail if you want it. Just one thing before I go.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the parish, whether the council sticks when you have to have work carried out on the square, because one occasion we turned up and someone had painted numbers all over the stones, which is an absolute nightmare. That was obviously some utility contractor. And during COVID, when they dug up the square, they didn't even repoint it. They just put dirt in between so the big slabs just outside sort of, just, I think it was between Corkers and stuff. So I don't know whether you have a responsibility or whether they have a responsibility, but you know, people are doing work in town and not finishing it properly. It's kind of shabby, in my opinion, but that's just what we see when we're out there all the time. So
Yeah.
it's kind of connected, leading, but not connected.
On that point, we only, the section 101 agreement we have with county council only covers us the section 115 of Highway Act 1980. So it means that we can't enforce things like, for example, any remedial work that needs to be done by utility companies, for example, that still needs to be directed to the county council, unfortunately. But
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to pick up on it.
No, let's make a proposal.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean.
I'd like to make a proposal. Thank you. And I've given aid to note the verbal update from Sean and to suggest that we progress with a sign for the marketplace, to progress with a single yellow line for the marketplace, and that we write to the tenants to ask them to keep it clean as best they can.
Right.
Okay, I'll propose.
Then just be a second then.
There is. All those in favour? All those against?
We spent too much.
So we're going to move on now to.
Thank you for making a proposal.
Sorry,
Thank you very much.
Take the blame walls.
Another proposal.
Thanks very much.
Can I make a proposal before we move on? But, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to propose that we look into or consider signage on the marketplace to deter vehicles from parking on there.
Small, not huge.
No, just something little, because just if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's just a little.
Do it or explore it.
Like we do- I would like to do it.
Fine.
I'll second- I'll
Sorry.
second.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, it's still the. Whether there's anything to do, isn't it? Whether it's.
There isn't one to do.
Sorry, is it?
I'll second
I would
that.
like to propose at least looking into it, to see if we can deter vehicles, bikes from parking on the marketplace. I mean, I've seen it and I think it's, you know, I think something needs to be done. And I'm not talking about huge expensive, just something that perhaps we can just put on the marketplace.
I'll second it and speak to it.
Okay, that's it.
There was a small sign on one of the bollards, actually. Lamppost, that NHS lamppost, there was a sign on there at one point. I don't know what's happened to it, whether it's still there or not. It said no bike parking. Yeah, that, there was. But I don't know if it's still there, but they just ignore it. So we're gonna have to enforce it, unfortunately.
I don't think anything is best solution. We can just, we can look, we can certainly investigate.
You don't need looking into, it was brought to my attention by the enforcement, the people that do our enforcement in the town now. Said that if there's a sign, it makes their job a lot easier because they could just say, there it is, you've got a ticket, simple. And that's what they said, if there's a signage up there to say it, then they can enforce it. Even though that you've got the double yellow lines and the flicks on the pavement and all that sort of stuff, and you can still do it. They just need that sign as a thing, so I think it just needs to go ahead and put it onto the right thing and do it.
So have Madam Mayor, then Councillor Arlott.
The majority of the offences take place on a Sunday when we have no enforcement. That's all I was to say.
Councillor Arlott.
Actually, Sean,
I know
Oh,
there's
Sean. Peter the enforcer does come in some weekends on Saturdays and Sundays. He does.
There's nothing on a Sunday.
Yeah,
There's
well,
nothing on a
okay, I'll
Sunday.
check with them, but I'm sure he's in his.
They're not contracted at
Okay.
all.
I think this other one, why don't we just add this on to the parking, review that we're looking at? I think you should take it all with that. It's to do with parking again.
Okay, that is true. We do have a specific parking with the group. Can you make an amendment to the proposal?
Oh, hang on.
We've got proposal.
No,
I feel my proposal's being shoved out the
Yeah.
door here.
No, we can
yeah,
accept the
you can-
amendment.
Hang on. Mr.
Sorry.
Chair, can I put this to the vote, please?
Sorry?
Can you put this to the vote, please? We've got a proposal, we've got a second. it, to get on with the
It's
sign.
amended.
Are you going to make an amendment to it?
It's not up to, I can ask it to be amended, but the seconder has to agree with that.
Okay.
What was your thinking?
That we just add this on to the parking review that we're taking place at the moment, otherwise we could get bits and pieces coming up all over. the
Are
place.
you happy with that, sir? Or
As
not?
long as it is looked into, yes, and,
We've got a meeting at the end of October with.
Do you sit on that?
Charles.
Tomorrow, I don't know whether I'm on that,
Here you are.
but yeah,
there you go.
Okay, so
yeah,
I'm happy with that, as long as it's looked into, yeah.
I've got every sympathy with the motivation behind this proposal, and I don't like to disagree with my colleague, am I right? But and the objective is more than reasonable, but I don't like putting up all sorts of signs. It looks negative and unwelcoming, for one thing, and secondly, I very much doubt it would have any effect, either because it would be ignored or because it wouldn't be enforced. So I don't mind the parking group considering it, but I wouldn't. I don't think it's part of the other solution that we should be looking at.
okay, 1 second, everybody wants to speak, so can we just have Nicky for a
So
second?
can I just ask one question? If it does go through, what happens if people like use security vans and have it park up to the bank?
you can't.
Which I think, do they not have a requirement to pull up close to a vehicle to the bank to load money and upload money?
The bank's closing.
Bank's
down.
closing.
Well, there's that one, it's-
Problem solved. No problem
That's
solved.
solved that problem.
It's going to probably take till February to get a sign up anyway.
Still have 2 banks. Well, one place.
Technically, if you, in Reading, there's a certain time, a period of time that they can go on their pavement area. And if you go in there after a set time, then you get fined. So, but that's Reading. But Henley, when the enforcement officer said, if there was signage up there, it makes his job a lot easier. And that's coming in from an enforcement officer. So if I'm happy, if putting it on the working group, if Sarah's happy.
I
I'll
just
put it-
wanted to reply to Ian.
Right, last one, councillor Group.
We can always put planters, put some plants.
You can't do that.
No,
Specifically, so as I understand, the proposal is that we explore the possibility of putting a sign somewhere in Marketplace to discourage parking, and that the parking working group should discuss this. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all those in favour? All those against? Carry. Thank you. Right, item 6, police update. So, hopefully they're unable to join us. I haven't read my emails today. Was there an update from them? No.
They'll live here.
Okay, fair enough. So I suppose we will move on. Item 7, communications manager update. Thank you, Daisy. Is there any agenda? Anybody have anything to add? Councillor Hinton?
yeah, so, sorry, let me just go back to the page on the report.
No,
So the last paragraph was about developing better working relationships with the local press, which I think is fantastic, obviously completely support, but the priority here should be to improve the information that's going out to the residents, to improve the perception of the town council, what we're doing, informing people in the masses. It shouldn't be about councillors being chased necessarily. I'd never mind anyone phoning me up, whether it's Michaela or one of the reporters. Quite often the junior reporters will give a call to particularly the longer serving councillors.
for information. I don't think, oh, for a quote or whatever, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I certainly don't want to come across like that's a bad thing. I'd encourage that. But I do think the priority is informing our residents and informing our retailers and everybody else in the town what's going on, what we're doing, because sometimes I feel like we are doing a lot and we're not very good at communicating that. So that's where I feel the priority should be, that's all. But I do think it's great about with improving the relations with,
Yeah.
with Brent.
Completely agree. Anybody else have anything to add? Councillor Eggleton?
Just about the adventure golf, really, under the assumption that when we've met with all the different companies that come down to talk about their different things, they were running it all year round. And not even running it up to right up to Christmas. So in that aspect, so you could have snow on some of the places, but probably if it snowed, you probably wouldn't want to play it. But it seems like slowing it down.
Yeah, actually, all you do, David, just use a coloured ball.
Oh yeah, that's it. Use colour balls for snow.
Cheryl?
We did have a possibly working group, meeting.
I know,
this
I
afternoon,
suppose.
And we talked extensively about everything else over these periods, so.
Councillor Crick?
I really love it. It's the, what is miscommunication, well, it's not a good thing, but it's misperception by residents of this town. And for some reason, I don't know why, but they think we're paid and we're not, we're volunteers. And they do not understand that, and it's that lack of understanding, and we really need to put that forward. If they need to do something to say that we give up our time free and we're not paid. Because people have to, they do. I speak to people, no, I thought you were paid, and I was like, that's what's not communicated, and people don't understand that, and they like.
People are usually shocked when I tell them that we're all volunteers. Yeah, you are right. There is a
Not that if the council.
misconception.
show that.
I've got an idea how we get around this. Will could do a spotlight on a council every week in Henry Standard.
I can confirm I'm not paid by the Henley Standard, which is what I thought I was paid, but there we go.
Off topic again.
Councillor Lyson. Following up on Councillor Hinson's remarks, I agree that there's plenty of things that we can talk about, which I think people aren't aware of. And a good example was Green Week. As I mentioned at full council, I spoke to one at one of the events about the council's achievements. Several people came up to me at the end, and these are people who were enthusiastic about climate change and green issues, the environment. And I had no idea the council were doing so much, and it was a long list. And I must admit, I was surprised when I saw how long the list was. And so the Climate Emergency Working Group are doing great work behind the scenes. But there's a great opportunity there to spread good news about what we're achieving in real terms, not just passive resolutions and talking about things. We're actually making real change to what we do. And I very much like to see that promoted. Have a green publicity week for the council, perhaps, and get some news out there.
Thank you very much.
So
Councillor Bennett?
just a quick question, actually. Are we no longer promoting the meetings that we do now? I know beforehand that there used to be a lot of social media to invite members of the public to come to the meeting.
Councillor Hinson used to post them quite a few times.
No, it runs out from the council as well.
I don't think the council has ever really active, certainly not during my time, has ever really actively promoted.
It was.
promoted meetings, but
I saw Naomi do some.
Naomi may have done as
She
well.
did quite
yeah.
a lot. And because I've noticed, we don't get anybody coming over.
Well,
That's been a bit like that since COVID mess, hasn't it?
We're all happy.
I just wondered if it was done, you know, if we'd actually decided.
I would say that people are very quickly find out about a meeting when there is something going wrong that they want to discuss.
But we need
I-
people things going wrong.
I would say that usually lack of attendance by members of the public is not always a bad thing.
No.
It's a good point, well made. Councillor Hamilton.
I totally agree. There's a burning issue. They all play in. So they did with private street and the parking that they did quite recently. However, I raise a bigger point. Mike Kennedy, the predecessor, R1. Not so much change yet. Always did a piece 6 months before the elections next May on what it is to be a councillor and what it is an apolitical piece, what it is to be a councillor and what different roles a councillor took and the responsibilities of the town council versus SODC and versus OCC. And he used to do that always 6 months prior to, and there'll be copies of what he did previously. And perhaps that's something that the town clerk could consider putting out there, given we are 6 months or nearly 6 months away from, not maybe a general election, but certainly a town council election. We'll have to see. And then just the other thing on the putting, I'm pleased to see it's going so well. The putting working group, and I was busy this afternoon, considered perhaps a 12 days of Christmas and perhaps a Santa. A Santa, 12 days dressed as a Santa, as it were. But I'm not suggesting that any councillors wish to dress up as animals, but you know, it might be something that we can attract extra people around Christmas if there was some Christmas lights there.
Okay. Madam Mayor.
Just one point on comms, if I may, before we think of moving on.
Yeah.
Are we in Purdy yet with regards to the neighbourhood plan?
Yes.
Okay, and I won't mention it then.
Daisy, do you want to add anything?
Yes, well, there's a Christmas study and stuff. Yes, always fine, favorites, I've got a time of emergency work on releasing next week. To discuss what more we can do to get the word out.
16 councillors, I'm sure you can do this council.
Okay, so taking us to item 8, 2023-2024 budget to consider the draft community budget. Page 11.
Even for me, it's tight.
Yeah.
I think it could have gone out in A3 as well. It did. Apologies, it should have gone out in A3.
I think it could even be live on this page.
Yeah, okay, I adjusted there, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not too excited.
Yeah.
We've got us off, I can read it.
The committee will have another go at it, so we can certainly make sure that for the next meeting it is larger.
To consider, so do we have to vote to approve it? I suppose we do, don't we? Yeah.
Well, to recommend.
Yeah. Okay, so did anybody have anything to say? No, all those in favour of this project? It's approved unanimous, thank you very much. Taking us to item 9, heritage bin liners. Okay, so recommendation is that the bin liners will not be repaired or replaced unless requested to do so by SODC. Councillor Eggleton.
I don't know really where to start, because every one of these is sort of like, this has just been going on for a long time. I even have dreams about the bins now, that's how long it's been going on. I think it's been going on for about 2 years. Different types of, we're still waiting for 3 bins to be put back out. This is like 4 or 5 months ago. There's still 3 bins haven't been put back out. I don't even think they've been painted, actually. I think 2 of them were refurbished, but they're still in the depot. And one of them's been put back out. So you've got one at the riverfront, and one outside, down at Bell Street, outside Robert Dyers. Those are the 2 that were taken out and not been put
Those
back.
are missing bins though, aren't they?
No, they've been taken out.
Yeah.
To be refurbished, to go down that route,
Yeah.
and they're still sat in their compound.
Right.
That they've
But
been
this is
refurbished.
specifically about.
This is
bin
about,
liners.
yeah, but this is the whole thing. I mean, you're talking about refurbishing the bins. I haven't seen any survey that anybody, I've done 2 surveys with 2 town managers, been out, measured the bins, see which liners need replacing. I haven't seen a report or anybody that sent a report back saying whether these bins are fit for purpose. I know some of the bins are oval now, they're not round. When they become oval, then they tend to break and split straight down the seams, so they would become jagged, so they would need replacing. The AD, the person that used to do empty the bins, used to tell me that quite a few of them needed replacing. I didn't know what the cost was going to come out on these plates, putting the plates in the bottom of the bin. If you've got a cylinder bin and you've got, when you buy them, if they were recessed up a little bit, then they wouldn't catch on the bolts, because in the bottom of the bin, some of the bolts are sticking out of the bin. So each time they go in, they punch a hole in the bottom and then it rocks the bottom of the bin out with the liquids and that in there. But if you've got a plate in the bottom, all the liquids come out, and if they're raised up a bit, they sit on the top of the bolt, so they don't, if they're not in contact with the floor and no liquid in them, then they won't rot out. They stay within that shape. But if you have no liners in the middle, the reason they're made into circular drums is so they become stable within that, because they're structurally sound within that thing. If you don't have no liner in the bottom of them, then that bin will then collapse. So you'd have to replace the bins anyway. So you'd have to replace all those bins, because none of the bins have got bottoms in any of them. Because I've been round and had a look at all of them. So I don't know.
So the specific decision we're making here is whether to replace, whether to replace all of them or just to replace them ad hoc as recommended by SCDC and BIFA.
Well,
that's what it boils
but
down.
they don't check them.
They must have been.
Well, no, because I've asked the question. No.
Yeah, so Chris, the BIFA operative who empties the bins, says they're fine.
Okay. Councillor Hamilton.
I have to say this has been going, we have been going, this has been going on for at least 3.5 years, but there we go. I thank Dave for his passion in trying to sort this problem out, because he's the one who's been around every single bin, he's measured them, he's been around with 2 town centre managers, and he carries on and he wants to get something done. And I just want bins that are fit for purpose. And I keep getting reports back, bits of, well, now we're talking about the liners, now we're talking about the hinges, now we're talking about the painting, whatever it might be. We need bins that are fit for purpose. Full stop. We were told last time that a bin review was being taken place, and that was why we couldn't have a bin up at wooden shops. That bin needs to go in my view. That was more than 1.5 years ago that we were told that the SODC were doing a bin review. We were then told at an election, actually, that we were going to get some solar panel bins. Well, they haven't arrived, and apparently the software doesn't fit on the lorry. Again, it was discussed.
It's not relevant to this conversation.
Well, it's a line and a solar panel bin. Anyway, the fact of the matter is we need bins that fit for purpose, and that currently we haven't got it. So let's try and get it right. That's what I'm suggesting. I'm sure they will have a better proposal than the one that's here.
Our bins are currently fine. That's what they're saying, and they work with them closely. So
I'd like to see the report from that. If we've been out and had a look at all the bins, because I've been around and looked at all the bins, and anybody will want to come out with me, I'll take them out with me, and I'll show you what's wrong with the bins, because I'd like to see a report from BIFA or from the street person to say that they're not, the ones I've looked at are oval, not round. And the thing is, if you've got a certain tube, when you get it out and keep knocking it about, that's just going to be, it's just going to, at some point, someone's going to cut themselves, because a bin is made with a cylinder in the bottom in it to make it structurally sound.
we have this in writing, so Sheridan's going to forward it round to everybody. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I have it in writing, though. Who's actually, I want, they've had it in writing, yeah, but have they been out to have a look at the bins? Because they, no, I don't think they have. Well, that's what, that's the question I've asked. If, have they actually been out and looked around every bin? If they haven't, then I'll go around with them and point out all the defects on the bins. Okay.
One could suggest, 1 or 2 years ago, whatever, if we had replaced all these bins with new bins, we wouldn't be having all these conversations. In my view, at the time, we should have replaced them, and we should have kept the other ones for spares. But we didn't do that, and we are where we are. And I know Dave's been around, because I've been around with him. All I would suggest now is that we make sure that the locks work, because otherwise people just open it and put big bags in there. So we need to make sure the locks work. Why this is taking so long, I don't know. And also I would asked Biffa if they did check all the bin liners, and the bin liners are quite simple, and they sit on that as well. The problem was there's a bolt sitting up at the bottom of the bins. The inserts sit on that, and eventually the bottom gives way. There's an easy solution to that, which I'm not going to pay through, not going to say through public session. But there's an easy solution to that. So all you need a bin that doesn't sit on the bolt, and you need the lock. And they're the two main things. Painting, that's another issue, but they're the two things. So I don't agree with the recommendation to do nothing unless Biffa can assure us that all the inserts and the locks are working. And providing Biffa can do that, yeah, we don't need to do anything. But if they can't, if they can't show that is the case, we need to get the inserts in. And we've now got the insert back on the bin outside the town hall. Nice and easy, bin's there, put your rubbish in it, take the sack away, end of story. Simple. So we definitely need the inserts, and we definitely need the locks repaired.
Okay, thank you.
Just on the liners, again, as we've said in the report, we have spoken to Biffa, so we've spoken to David Langstaff, who is the technical officer there, who basically says, and we've spoken to Chris, who's the operative who goes round, and Chris, who's the operative who literally goes round to every bin and empties every bin, has said there is not a problem. David Langstaff from Biffa has basically said that if the bottom of the bins is jagged anyway because the bottom is rotted out, then putting a circular disc in the bottom is going to make no difference because it still gets snagged on the potential for it still to get snagged on the edge of it anyway. So basically, the result of that is the same. If they are finding there are no problems, and they are the ones who are emptying it, and they are the ones who know there are any problems, and they are the ones who have to pick up any of the litter, if they are saying that there is no problem, then I'm happy to go. I would really strongly suggest we go with their recommendations. If they if they are saying that there is a problem with any of them, we can replace them on an ad hoc basis for £40 whenever they say we can get one ordered and we can get it in the next week.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riceman.
I think what Councillor Arlott was suggesting, and the town clerk is, I think, supported, I may be wrong here, is effectively what's in 5.1. In other words, the functional part of the bins, if they are working according to those who use the bins, i.e. the CDC Biffa, then no action is needed. And so I'd like to propose 5.1 as I think Councillor Arlott was suggesting, and the town clerk would support. We have to separate here the functional parts of the bins, which appear to be okay for our best information, from the appearance of the bins. And Councillor Hamilton seemed to be complaining about the appearance of the bins. Well, as Councillor Arlott's pointed out, the decision on the bins was strongly supported 2 or 3 years ago by Councillor Hamilton, and he's got what he wanted. So the appearance of the bins should be, I can't understand why he's complaining about it. We may well have taken the wrong decision at that point, but we took it and the bins are there as they are refurbished. So I certainly agree.
Okay, thank you.
But-
Seconded?
Yeah, I agree with what Ken was saying, but the thing is, I'd still like to meet with one of the people that come out and go round with him.
Seconded. All those in favour of 5.1, all those against? So it's carried, thank you. It's progress, is it? Yes, item 10, progress.
Agenda, now bins are over.
Let's talk about rubbish.
Yeah, I completely switched over bins. Fine.
Have you been there?
Yeah, been there, done that.
You've been there.
Right, it's in.
Oh God, is it on the progress book? I just picked up again.
It is, yeah, another go.
I'll have to come to more of your allegiance, Chair, unless it will last longer.
Well, you know, I'm not rushing. It depends what's cause and effect, Councillor Arlott here, I think. Right. Does anybody have anything to comment on any of the progress?
No. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I want to add something from it. The bollards. The bollard is missing behind the town hall. There are 2 bollards on Thameside North, Thameside South, that have been missing for about a year and a half. Awaiting they're the ones that have got, you know, there's a chap that drove into the river, and he took out 2 bollards. I know they rescued the bollards, but I think they've been sitting in the depot since. And
I can answer that.
I just like to get some progress with these bollards, because get around the town, bollards that are missing don't look good.
I'll answer that, guessing don't look good.
I can answer that anyway. It's the 2 bollards that were in the river. I retrieved them and they went down to Parks Depot. And they tried to get, because there's a row of them, they tried to get the replacements of those bollards, because those particular ones, I think, lift out. They're not actually permanently fixed in. So they tried to get replacements for them, couldn't get replacements for them. So I suggested and spoke to 2 metal companies that because they're hollow tubes, that you can put a steel liner inside the tube and make the, because there's take it out along the bottom, and this metal fabric people said that they could put these cylinder things in and then they can then drop them back in. So at the moment they're at this metalwork. I think the Park Services have taken over to, I think it might be Maidenhead or somewhere, to this metalwork to have these sleeves put in, and once they're done they will be relocated, those ones, but I don't know about the other one at the top.
It's already work in progress. Sure.
I believe bizarrely, this was one that sat with Cat. I'm not entirely sure why it did sit with Cat, but it did for some reason. She was rather excited about an update about both bollards following the meeting, I think with OCC. But I can't remember what the update was. But I think there is an update, but I can double check it.
I think so. Is it on any progress report of any other committees?
No, but those, yeah, those, yeah, definitely those 2 bollards are being repaired because they can't get those ones and they need to match the ones that are there. So other than them being sheared off at the base of them, the rest of the bollards all right. So steel sleeve, you won't see the difference in the steel sleeve. They will still drop back in.
Thank you. Anybody else?
And the other thing for the progress report, I see the graffiti. Yeah, this again has been waiting 9 months to be taken off. Understand it's for a stone, all the rest. But we really need to get that off. It's a great one, this to structure. I just ask, can we add graffiti and pavement surface? Because we know about the pavement surface. We know that the file was handed to someone else, someone left, and someone picked it up. But we really need to get the pavement surface amended sometime this year or next year. It's been waiting 1.5 years already. I understand what happened at OCC, but that's where the utility company took the pavement up and put it back down wrongly. So could we just put it on the progress report so we keep an eye on it?
The progress report. It's on the next page.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the next page. That's turn over.
Nicky's ahead of you.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, can I just propose here that these figures to repoint the slabs, we're never going to pay this kind of money out. To this day, and I think I was going to get someone to just pop down and suggest that we just do some small areas, you just get a local bricklayer just to go and repoint some. This is absolutely crazy money what's being proposed, and even Sean tonight said it's probably near 100,000 if he was to get someone to do it. So can we just take this off the agenda? We're never going to pay that kind of money to repoint some of that York stone. It's crazy money, and I've been saying this for months. So I would take it off, see if we can get a local builder just to send him out there for a week, agree a daily rate, get him to go out there for a week and see how much he can repair. But that there is absolutely crazy money.
Is that a proposal?
Yeah. Speak on that. Yeah, I think it's around money, and it doesn't have to be all progress happening, and we can then work through the marketplace, because the only way that those, if you don't point them, you have longer thing, and Ken will know this as well. If you don't repoint them, in time, when you get, not so much in the summertime, but in the winter time, when you get the water runs in underneath it and you get a hard frost, it starts lifting and then you start getting slabs rocking and then you have to have them up and then replace them and they start, and then you get a vehicle drive on them and then they crack them. So it's crucial that they're all fixed in and pointed sooner than later.
I'll put it. Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, I too don't want to spend £100 on repointing, and I do think we should try and get a local builder to look at the ones that are rocking and the ones that are cracking, ones outside Lawrence Menswear. I've always thought, oh, yeah, someone's going to do a heel on that at some point. So anyway,
That's not.
but in order to take it off there, you need to put it on to another agenda in order to make it happen to go and see a local builder. So do you want it off or do you want it on?
No, we're just taking them on the motion slightly.
We can keep it on there to not to have it,
That's why I'm
not to have this work done, but keep it on there for so it's an ongoing, so we can keep an eye on it.
I'll sum up, or we just vote now? Okay, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. All right. Sure. Item 11, exclusion of the press and public.
Jeremiah, you do.
Yeah, please, thank you.
We offline now.
No need
Build
to.
it up.
We